So let's talk about the new big box for the Sons of Russ. Is the Space Wolves army set a good deal or not? Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking Space Wolves, and in this video I thought we'd do a focused look at the big box army set that was revealed at Adepticon, talk through the contents, what we know about the models and the rules for them, then put it all together in terms of discounts on the box set, and a few polls as to which miniatures people are most looking to pick up, and the popularity and buying intent of the box set overall. The Space Wolf army set is the big box for the Sons of Russ. Out of their new plastic range, it contains 5 of their new kits, though currently we don't know exactly how big their range refresh is going to be. It does seem like it's going to be a fairly chunky one. If I'd had to predict for the other ones, I'd guess Logan Grimnar, Bjorn the Fell-Handed and Terminators, probably plus an upgrade sprue, and I'd guess maybe a few more characters besides that. What Games Workshop comes out with though, I guess we'll have to wait and see. We don't know the release date of the big box. I'd guess it'll be somewhere around April to May. Games Workshop don't usually tend to showcase boxes like this all that far beyond them going live. We still have the Emperor's Children main release wave to get out of the way first, and I feel like there's a good potential that this might come out after the Deity Legion Codexes as well. They were both billed as now on Games Workshop's release schedule. I guess the box will come out, and then we'll get some interim points like the Guard and the Emperor's Children did in between that and the main release wave. Then the actual full release for the Space Wolves with their Codex individually and all their plastic kits should come later. It could be a fair bit behind the box set though, maybe as much as 2 months. Supply of the box sets should be quite a lot better than most Battle Force box sets out there. Generally they produce far more of these big launch boxes versus the sort of discount deals that come out alongside armies, but when they sell out they will be gone. Supply of these has varied a bit around the world for the last couple of them. For the Guard and the Emperor's Children they underproduced them a bit. Some places at least had the chance to buy them for a day. In the USA and Canada things sold out very quickly indeed though. Finally, the price for the box set should be around £145, $230 and €180, so kind of similar to the Blood Angels army or the Deathcore one. My guess would be that it'll either be that high or higher, depending on whether or not Games Workshop has time to fit in a price rise beforehand. Getting into the contents of the box set though, and these are the things that you get in it. There's 2 character miniatures in a Wolf Priest and a Wolfguard Battle Leader, then a set of 10 Blood Claws, 10 Grey Hunters, 3 Elite Veteran Wolfguard Headtakers alongside 3 Hunting Wolves, a limited edition codex with the art that you can see here, plus some datasheet cards. As I mentioned in the reveal video for this one, I will be doing this as the Auspex Tactics May giveaway. Always nice to basically have a big reboot box set for a faction to get some people interested. And if you'd like to enter for this one, there's 2 equal ways linked down in the video description, either supporting the channel on the Patreon page for automatic entry, or a free social media entry that I'll talk through a little bit more at the end of the video. There'll be 8 winners, each getting one of these, the draw done at the start of May. I'll talk through the ways in which you can enter for this one a bit more in depth at the end of the video, so feel free to cycle back to that if you're interested. Going through the contents bit by bit though, and first up we have the Grey Hunters. These guys basically being the experienced Space Marine veteran infantry, kind of the equivalent of other Space Marine tactical squads. It seems they did make the jump to Primaris. There's 10 of them in the box set, and they're basically Primaris Space Marines armed with bolt carbines that a lot of them are firing in the pistol grip that they're known for, and with a chainsword in the offhand. So for their battlefield role, they're going to be quite a big threat against the light infantry, both at range and in melee. The sculpts are hardly the headline act of the army, but they feel like they strike at least a fairly good balance between some Space Wolf iconography on the chest plates and a few charms and trinkets and things, and being fairly straightforward Primaris, a fair few of the barehead options add a bit of character as well. This does feel quite a lot better to me than the treatment that the Blood Angels Death Company got, where they just got an upgrade sprue. The main options for the kit are just a Power Fist option for the Squad Sergeant, and you can take a Plasma Pistol as well. Games Workshop teased a datasheet and some rules for the Grey Hunters. From the datasheet it looks like they're locked to a 10-man unit only, which maybe isn't a particularly great thing for an objective grabbing unit. Space Wolf Infantry moves a bit faster at 7 inches, they've got a big OC3 which is unusual for a squad quite this big, and then in the stream they said that their bolt carbine will fire 3 shots when it's within rapid fire range, so quite a bout of fire against light infantry there, backed up by a bunch of chainsword attacks in the same sort of style as the Assault Intercessors. The datasheet rule is listed as being the same as the Assault Intercessors one as well, rerolling ones to wound, and then rerolling all wound rolls against things on objectives, so a bit more bite there, and that could be a good attraction for putting a character with them. I would suspect they'd probably have to be at least fairly cheap to be a strong unit though. I feel like having to take them in big maxed out squads of 10 isn't what people would choose to do if they had the option, and it means they won't compete quite so well for the utility role. For pricing for them, I'd likely expect them to be around about £40 or $62.50. That'd be the same price as similar kits like the Infiltrators or Incursors. Otherwise, and likely eventually sold for the same price, are the Blood Claws. These guys are really quite similar in stylings, but I think they're a different kit, not a dual build one, given that most of the legs are quite different. I'm not sure if Games Workshop has 100% said anywhere, but otherwise they have very similar stylings with the same sort of many basic Primaris trappings, but with a few Space Wolf bits, and they're fighting with regular bolt pistols and Astartes chainswords, generally in slightly more dynamic poses, clearly charging down the enemy with their characteristic berserk charges. They're the sort of younger and hot-blooded Space Wolf recruits, put into power armor and then sent to test their mettle in battle. Again, like the Grey Hunters, I would expect their kits to be around about $62 or £40 or so. Rules-wise, we got a fairly good look at their datasheets from their pictures. Again, they move 7 inches, and it looks like they can advance and charge as per their datasheet rule. Doesn't seem they have all that many options aside from those standard chainswords though, but looks like the leader can only take a plasma pistol and a power weapon to represent that lightning claw. Advance and charge will be quite a big deal though. With 7-inch move, that means that they could have really quite a big threat range on the board, and maybe get a fighty character to where they need to go. Then for the third mainline unit in the army set, we've got the Wolfguard Headtakers, 3 models that basically feel like they're Wolfguard Bladeguard veterans really, fighting with shield and power weapon, in this case a bunch of power axes, which is all very Space Wolf. The rounded shield is quite nice I think, and they're bedecked in furs and other more elite trappings, and plenty of battle scars as well. Accompanying them are a whole bunch of big Fenrisian wolves. They really look like quite big miniatures, those ones. In the stream they said that they hunt alongside them, but they're fielded as separate units, so I guess that'd be the way that you'd field Fenrisian wolves now, with 3 of these as opposed to their standalone kit. They've got a couple of different loadout options, and they can be fielded with axe and sword if you prefer. They're quite likely to be 3 wounds based on things like Inner Circle Companions or Blade Guard with a bunch of damage to power weapons, and we know that their unique ability is pre-game to select one unit as your quarry, and you get devastating wounds against that target, and also precision as well. Hopefully should be fun and powerful damage dealers fighting elites that you can either have being a mix of dangerous and tanky, or just outright go for damage. Price-wise, I'm a little bit less certain as to where these guys will land. For things like Blade Guard or Inner Circle Companions, Games Workshop charges quite a big price for them, only very slightly behind their 10-man kits for their rank and file troops. With the addition of a trio of wolf miniatures, I suspect they're going to be quite expensive. I've guessed around about the heavy intercessor price point here, but I guess could potentially be a little bit less than that. That would put them at $65 or £42.50 if so. Finally for the miniatures, we've got the 2 characters in the box set. First up, the Wolfguard Battle Leader. Quite a fun little thematic centerpiece character model there. He can take either a power sword or a thunder hammer, and then pair that with either a storm shield or a plasma pistol in his other hand. Again, I feel like that miniature looks really quite good. Lots of furs and Space Wolf trappings, and very much going down the mainly Space Viking kind of theme. And Games Workshop have fairly standard character price points, usually $42 or £26 for standard issue Marine ones. They said in the stream that he can lead the Headtakers, Bloodclaws and the Grey Hunters. Seems likely that the Thunderhammer will be the way to go in terms of damage output, and I'll probably pair that with the Storm Shield, and he'll most likely add lethal hits to his unit, plus some sort of other special rule, which might just be a clone of the Space Marine Lieutenant one, or could be something more interesting. I believe the Terminator one had a 4+ feel no pain for other characters in the unit, but I think that wouldn't be all that useful if that were the case. Finally, we've got the Wolf Priest, basically the Space Wolf Chaplain, who also has the Apothecary role folded into his duties. Quite a fun and brooding miniature with his Crodius Arcanum, Absolver Bolt Pistol, and a couple of different head swaps here. Looks like you can swap out the pistol for a Frost Dagger, I think that might be, and a couple of different head options, including one that's rather fun with a big moustache and great big beard. The hooded head over Wolf Skull does look rather fun as well though. It sounds like his datasheet isn't going to be spectacularly different to the regular Chaplain really. He's got a similar stat line. I'd guess that his damage and defense will basically be exactly the same. I suppose he goes a little bit faster due to being a Space Wolf infantry model. They said that he gives a +1 to wound in melee like the other Chaplains, and then also he has a restore wounds to his squad special rule. If we're going by what they said in stream, then that sounds like he heals models as opposed to completely revives them onto the table. Though it could be either. In any case, that should be his second datasheet rule. In terms of the models that you guys are most hyped for, it seems that when rating them for looks, the Wolf Priest wins by a little bit, then the Wolfguard Headtakers and the Wolfguard Battle Leader a little bit behind that. People seem to be a little bit more mid on the Bloodclaws and Grey Hunters, though I feel like that's not really too surprising given that it's their role to be the more battle line and slightly more boring units as opposed to the focal centerpiece things. Broadly speaking, looks like they've done okay in the opinion polls. Here's a bunch of other things that people rated at Adepticon for a little bit of context. That does seem to track fairly perfectly, along with which miniatures people actually want to buy as well. Seems that Space Wolf collectors really want to get their hands on the Wolf Priest, and seem to be a little bit less bothered about the battle line than the Wolfguard unit and their battle leader. Otherwise, for paper contents of the box set, there'll be the datasheet cards and the new Codex. The datasheet cards tend to be £20.50 or $35, and this will just be for unit rules normally, not having any detachment things. Games Workshop does like to charge at least a fair bit for paper, but I feel like these tend to be quite useful, fairly nice for visual reference. Then finally for the box set, we've got Codex Supplement Space Wolves. These are usually £20.50, $35 or €26. Mercifully a fair bit cheaper than a bunch of the other codexes that are out there, but these guys do have the downside that they're only supplement books and meant to be used with Codex Space Marines as well, so if you collect one of these divergent chapters, you often wind up buying 2 books if you go via Games Workshop for the rules only. Aside from the bits about the units that they'd revealed to us, we don't know massive amounts about the book. Seems likely it'll still lock out some of the things that Space Wolves can't field, like Tactical Squads, Devastators, and Apothecaries. I guess maybe the Devastator bits might be lifted if they don't get unique long fangs, which is still a question mark. They're going to have 3 different unique detachments, each of which will have a saga that gives your army a buff in some way if you manage to do it. 20 datasheets in the book, which will be a drastic cut down compared with what there is now. Given that we're getting a new Wolfguard Battle Leader and Wolf Priest datasheet, that means that 17 other ones are going, and bear in mind that points in the book won't be the final ones. They'll only be fully revealed when Games Workshop puts them up digitally, which hopefully shouldn't be too long after the box set comes out. For metrics of how much stuff is in the box, one helpful one tends to be points, as that's basically how much of a chunk of a completed army it tends to represent in the box set. We won't really know these 100% until the downloadable points comes out, but I feel like we can have a pretty educated guess based on the rules that they have. If we go for a lieutenant for the battle leader, a chaplain for the wolf priest, grey knights and blood claws as they are now, go with blade guard for the Headtakers, and then Fenrisian wolves at the same price as 5 of them now, then that would overall give us around about 555 points in the box. I'd say that's kind of middling for these sort of offerings. It is lower than say the Emperor's Children or the Blood Angels got, who are more in the sort of 700 to 800 I believe, but on the other hand it's way more points than certain other factions they've done launch boxes for, say the Crus and the Death Corps. It'd be around about 2.4 points per dollar, which isn't terrible as 40k goes, but not exactly stand out for a discount box set. Though on the other hand, bear in mind that there aren't just models in this one, you also get the codex and data cards, so there's at least a fair bit of value tied up in things that wouldn't put any points on the table directly. If you did want to purchase all these items separately and bought them through Games Workshop, we can at least have a fairly good idea as to how much discount the box would be. It's highly likely to be that same £145 or $230 price tag unless they fit in a price rise anytime soon. And going by those previously estimated prices, that would mean that if you bought everything separately, it'd be around about $340 or £215. That would mean that very roughly it'd be around about a third off, so a 33% discount compared with buying those. That does seem to be a fairly common number for Games Workshop discount prices recently. It's about the same as the Death Corps, a little bit lower than the Emperor's Children and Blood Angels though. As ever with big discount box sets, if there's bits of it that you don't really want or you're not going to be able to resell or something, then it's going to lessen the value, so I'd always treat this number as a bit of a theory value. To get a temperature check for how good people thought that the box set was, I thought I'd ask you to rate it out of 5, and broadly speaking it seems that people were really quite positive about this one, giving it a 3.8 out of 5, so kind of similar to things like the Emperor's Children box set, or even the Adeptus Custodes Combat Patrol weirdly enough. I don't know if this might have been slightly inflated by putting it in the same poll as how people would rate the Deity Legion and Grey Knight battle forces, and maybe people just gave this a bit more credit by comparison perhaps. I think personally this one isn't too far off the mark. Going by people's previous answers, if say the Emperor's Children box set was 3.7 and say the Krieg one was 3.1, I'd probably put it somewhere between the two myself. I think I'd probably give it like a 3.4 or 5 on this scale. For looking at it another way, I also did a poll as to who wants to buy what out of the recent Battle Force announcements. It does seem that the Space Wolf launch box does have the most interest, but maybe not quite as far ahead as some of the other limited run box sets for the Deity Legions as you might expect. It looks like people are quite keen to pick up the Thousand Sons and Death Guard ones, both of which do seem like quite good Battle Force box sets as Games Workshop goes. Space Wolves do still win overall though, and certainly most of them seem to be far more interested in these ones versus the Grey Knights. Finally, to look at demand for it one more way, it looks like around about 10% worth of 40k hobbyists watching Auspex Tactics will wind up picking this up. Again, that's from channel polls, and then weighting the numbers for how many people actually tend to follow through on purchases, which does tend to be less than they initially say. From my past numbers, it looks like around about 15% bought the Krieg box set, around about 13 bought the Emperor's Children, and then around about 10 bought Blood Angels and Kroot. So as initial impressions for demand, it looks like it's got a similar sort of demand to the Blood Angels and Kroot, And I feel like that's maybe at least partly because there just aren't as many Space Wolf collectors as, say, there are Guard ones. And while the box set's definitely interesting, it maybe doesn't have quite the same sort of appeal of a new faction being completely added into 40k, which I feel like drove up interest. Still though, it definitely doesn't seem to be notably behind these, and it's still going to be a big deal release for 40k. Overall, for my takeaways from this one, it feels like a fairly standard run-of-the-mill Games Workshop launch box. For the biggest positives of it, they are all new sculpts, so not just getting generic intercessors with upgrade sprues like the Blood Angels got, and most of those new sculpts have been really quite well received, particularly the veterans and the characters. The discount does look acceptable by Games Workshop standards, even if it isn't crazily standout, and getting the Codex and the Datasheet cards I think is a nice enough positive. I feel like that will draw people to it who want to play Space Wolves as soon as possible in 10th. The points seem kind of mid to me, neither really crazily a positive nor a negative, and I guess if I was trying to pick holes in it, probably downsides not to buy would be that the standard Battle Line Space Marines maybe not so crazily different from current Primaris. I feel like I could see some Space Wolf collectors sticking with, say, some cool Assault Intercessors that have kit bashed to look more Space Wolfy if they wanted to, perhaps. And maybe I'm a little bit skeptical as to how powerful the big batch of troops will be in game. Just feels like both units would have to be kind of unusually cheap to get good, even if that does seem like it could be a big possibility with Games Workshop and new releases. The discount will be a little bit minimal as well if you can't get it through a discount retailer. If you lose out on, say, a 15% saving, then the amount that you're saving by getting this box set really isn't all that much at all. And I feel like when it gets to that sort of level, there's a good argument that you could just go out and buy the exact kits that you want and just have a bit of patience and buy them at discount later on. I guess maybe another small downside is not being able to compare it to the upcoming Space Wolf Combat Patrol box set yet. That's not necessarily a big negative though, it might not be very good, but would be nice to know the info as to whether or not this one might be kind of directly behind the Combat Patrol if that one turns out to be really nice. Overall though, I feel like there's enough here for people to be positive about it, and obviously they do seem to be by my polls. I'll be interested to hear your takes on it though. Would you be tempted to pick up this box set if you have interest in Space Wolves or not? Finally, I'll just cycle back to the channel giveaway, which will be the May one for the Space Wolf box set. As mentioned earlier, there'll be an opportunity for 8 winners to get their hands on a Space Wolf launch box, chosen by a random number generator from viewers of the channel. As ever, for the channel giveaways, there's 2 equal ways to enter, both of them links down in the video description below. Either you can support the channel on Patreon for any amount, that's the main thing that keeps all these videos coming, and has a few other benefits, but one of them is automatic entry to the channel giveaways every month, and a big thank you to anyone supporting on there. Otherwise though, there's a completely free way to enter by supporting the channel on social media. That one's on the channel's Facebook page, and to do that, subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page first, and then a giveaway post will appear on Facebook on the 1st of May. If you go to that post and respond to it within the first 24 hours after it goes live, you get entered for the giveaway, and on the response there must be a photo of a 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten in the same photo. That bit's to deter Facebook bots and spammers, and make sure that the prizes go to real people. Then after the 24 hours is up, I lock the post and do the draw, putting everyone into a random number generator equally. Pick out the 8 winners, I'll contact them and announce the winners on the 4th of May YouTube video. Obviously we don't know exactly when these box sets will start to ship out yet, so they'll be posted after I've received my orders of them. There'll be further giveaways happening on the channel every month, and at time of recording there's still chance to enter for the April Fulgrim giveaway as well. That'll be for all the same rules, but for 10 copies of the Demon Primarch, and that'll be at the start of April. Probably in a day or so's time after this goes live. In any case though, I'll leave this one there for now. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. As mentioned, check out the Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel, as well as entry to the giveaways. There's a few other things as well, seeing certain videos early, occasional votes on what comes next, and a fair bit more. A massive thank you to anyone supporting and helping keep these coming. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.